We're going to pull up the numbers and look at the top 10 rookies in PPR scoring from week 7. And we're going to go over why they're buys, sells, dumps, pickups, and whatever it is with them for fantasy football. But what you need to do right now is click that subscribe button. Click it with your finger on the phone. Click it with your mouse on your computer. Whatever you need to do to get the job done. We're doing deep dives on the waiver wire every day throughout the week. We're also helping you set those lineups, get those trades done, and everything else. Click that subscribe button. Stop missing out. Now we're going to be looking at some rookies from last week and trying to project them out forward for the rest of the season. Jordan Addison had his come-out game where he really blew up against the 49ers. He really blew up. 31.3 PPR points, 10 targets, 23.3% target share, 99 air yards, and he was just straight balling. 123 yards in this game, multiple touchdowns, and he's been productive throughout the year. He's just been a fabulous rookie to have on your team. This is no surprise. We talk about him in the series every single week, and now he really went off. We have Justin Jefferson out. They needed him to go off, and he sure did that. He's really living up to his first-round status, and he should develop even more and become more of a headache for defenses. Jordan Addison is a guy that you can't trade for right now. His value's on the up. You just can't really do that. There's not going to be many chinks to his armor going forward. It's just Jordan Addison to the moon right now. Now we're looking at Jahmyr Gibbs, 27.6 PPR points, and he had that touchdown where he showed that burst. 10 targets and a 20% target share. As we know, he gets it done in the passing game. We had a weird game script against Baltimore where Detroit was behind. Baltimore was able to run the ball, but he was using the passing game. He got 11 carries. He's getting volume. David Montgomery's out, but he showed us what we were expecting out of him as a rookie, just an explosive playmaker who can do it between the tackles, catch the ball in the backfield, and everything else. Josh Downs, we've been talking about him a lot. Third among rookies, 23.5 PPR fantasy points, 6 targets, almost a 30% target share. So we're pushing some high-end numbers here. Work rate, 97 air yards, which is a good thing because he averages about 50 air yards a game. So getting those air yards, getting those deep targets on multiple targets, good thing to see. He's running a lot of routes here. Had 125 yards. First time surpassing 100 yards of receiving. Also a touchdown in this game. Huge performance for Josh Downs. A lot of people are looking to get him off waivers. A lot of people already have them off waivers from watching my videos. But again, if a wide receiver is getting over a 20% target share, you may want to play the matchups with him. You may want to pick him up, especially a rookie, a younger guy who's doing that because he could get that increase sooner than later. Now we're looking at Puka Nacua. There's really not much to say here. This is what we expect. We expect him to get a huge target share. We expect him to get huge numbers. He had 23.4 PPR fantasy points. That's just normal for him. He only had one bust week on the season. Over 20 on all of them except for 2 games. Just a solid wide receiver in fantasy. If you were able to grab him after week 1 on waivers, you're really doing well right now at the wide receiver spot. And this trend should continue. There's nothing new here. He's not a buy low. He's a buy high if you can. If you can. I'm not selling him unless I'm catching a bag. That's for sure. Now we're looking at Rashee Rice. On waivers still in a lot of leagues. And I understand why. The 39 air yards in this game. He's not getting deep targets, and that's a consistent thing. Saw 6 targets in this game. He averages about 5.5 targets per game. So this is kind of on his upside, a 15% target share. Something you don't really want out of your wide receivers. You want more of a 20% target share, but he is on the Chiefs. More explosive offense. He's scoring touchdowns. He's being very consistent. He's not getting many bust weeks anymore. It was off and on every other week, but now he's being somewhat consistent. Not high in numbers. Good enough to get the job done. Doesn't look like he's going to be a league winner unless we get more air yards, deeper targets, more volume, because we need that to happen in this offense. We also need Mahomes to stop spreading around as much and really start dialing it into his playmakers. Rashee Rice looks like he's developing into that, which might happen later in the season. If these trends continue, he's going to look like a good guy to have on your roster, a good guy to play on lineups. If he starts getting more air yards, he could be a league winner, but we need him to get more deep targets. for him to hit that upside. Now we're looking at Jackson Smith-Njigba, and he's an upside play for the rest of the year. He's a lottery ticket because we know what happens when DK Metcalf is back. But again, 16.3 PPR fantasy points, almost a 30% target share. This might be more for 2024, but we've seen first-round wide receivers with good draft capital hit in the latter part of the season. That's just a thing that happens because these are very talented players. Remember, he had a whole year off from football pretty much. Now he's getting back. He's ramping up. Had that injury, too, to start the season. There's a lot going on with him. You got to give him a little grace. He might be up and down for the rest of the season. He might give you what he's been giving you, but he's also seeing some targets in his offense, so some glimmers of hope. If you have him in Dynasty, don't worry too much. Remember, he had a whole year out pretty much. Started the season kind of hurts. And you know what? We got some hosses in his wide receiver depth chart. And it's just how it is. Seattle's in weird game scripts too. So that's something you want to think about. And they're not pushing the ball to him downfield that much because going into this game, he had an 8 out of 4. So there's a lot of question marks we have. But again, things are looking okay for Jackson Smith-Njigba. Let's see if we can push this out to more games with this production. Now we're looking at Jake Bobo. 16.1 PPR fantasy points, 67 air yards, had 5 targets in this game, 61 yards and a touchdown. We're living on that touchdown. I don't see this being consistent. I don't see this being a guy that you need to chase off waivers. Don't chase fantasy production. Chase the workload, and I don't see how this workload can be consistent with DK Metcalf back in the fold, Jackson Smith-Njigba getting back to where he was in target share. I think Bobo might get an opportunity here and there, but still a guy in redraft you don't want. If you're in a deep dynasty and you want to shuffle the deck around, maybe, but honestly, the upside's really not going to be there for a 25-year-old rookie. Now we're looking at Dalton Kincaid here, 15.5 PPR fantasy points. People are all over him this week. Dawson Knox going to be out for a bit. Saw 8 targets. Got a target share. 37 air yards. I expect that from a tight end getting the shorter targets. Dawson Knox usually got the shorter targets, so Kincaid's going to get some of those as well. Kincaid got some of the deeper targets from the tight end spot for this team prior to week 7. But again, 15 fantasy points. Good to see. Going to be used in his offense. There's a lot of volume in this offense. It's explosive. And this is going to be a good time for him to shine for the first-round rookie. Tyson Bagent. You're not going after him unless you're in a 2 QB league and you're hurting at quarterback, which you probably already did because that's what you do in 2 QB leagues. But we got to point this out. A lot of short passes, 12.9 fantasy points, 88.5% of his passes were catchable, had a completion rate of 28.6% while under pressure. Not the greatest performance, but he got you around QB 20 results. Still got to talk about him getting opportunity. 2 QB, deeper leagues, yes, redraft. Basic 1 QB leagues, you know you're not doing it. Now we have a slew of guys here scoring in the same area. So let's talk about them all at once. So we're talking about more than 10 players in this video. Probably more like 15. Amari Demercado, 11.5 PPR fantasy points. Took over on touches last week. Looking good. You don't trust him. You don't trust the Cardinals. And that's about it. But he's a guy, if you need touches, he's going to give them to you, it looks like. Zay Flowers. Good wide receiver, been productive all year, seen a good target share, and he's hovering around this much production, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less in some weeks. 11.5 PPR fantasy points. Kind of expect that out of Flowers considering this is a lower volume passing offense. Demario Douglas getting some volume here in the passing game. 11.4 PPR fantasy points. Not a guy who's very consistent though in fantasy. Sam Laporta, 11.2 PPR fantasy points here, but tight end 9. Tight end 1. Numbers here, so that's something to think about. We have all these other wide receivers that are around wide receiver 3 range. You can be a tight end 1 and barely hit double-digit PPR fantasy points. That's something to think about. And then Jaden Reed. Watson's going to be out for a bit. His value increased. Still got 11 fantasy points here. Look for him to push for a 20% target share here in the future when Watson is out because that's where he was at when the other wide receivers were injured. But again, those are the trend lines. With the rookies here, we went over more than 10 rookies, but still, we do this every week. We go back, we look at their numbers, see what they're doing, talk some ball on them, and then go from there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on the way out. Catch you on the next video.